where do you see the point where Eric Cabrera where maybe enough is enough?
I know there was a report by Barry Jackson that mentioned that if he continued to struggle, they would actually consider going with Beoza. But Beoza's been just as bad, if not even worse. So I don't know. I'm interested to see what that'll look like, but it's hard because the pitching depth. Yeah, you look at what they're doing now during spring training, it looks good, but it's going to be different in the regular season. When you have a Connor Gillespie or a Jansen Junk starting, it won't be as good as it'll be in spring training. You're hoping it will be, but yeah, I mean, if Edward's struggling, you're really going to have to consider putting him in the bullpen. And I think that's something we've spoken about many times. I think even after what we've seen this spring, it's not looking any different. The velo's there, the stuff is there. It's just your control is terrible. I mean, the guy keeps walking dudes, giving up a ton of homers. Like, it's not good. And I know Beoza's been just as bad recently, but yeah, I think it should be a pretty short lease with Edward, in my opinion, at least.
I would say with the pitching depth that is close or near ready, Snelling, Mazur, guys like that. I would say it's if those guys are performing in the minors, I would say it's once they can save the extra year of control. If he is struggling through his first 4 to 5 starts, I would say I think that bullpen maybe could work for him. If his control is as bad as we've seen it in this spring training and continues to be that bad as we start the season, I think he may even be sent back. I mean, if he still has options, he could even be sent back. So I think he still has options. So I would say that he doesn't have options. No. Yeah. Okay. So then he's going to the bullpen. But if he had options, I would say he would go to AAA because his control is that bad that he may need to figure it out elsewhere. But since he doesn't have options, I was just about to check that. Since he doesn't have option years, it would be the bullpen. And then maybe just, try to do baby steps and get him back to it sparingly in terms of working every second day or first day rather than working every 5th day. That's an adjustment. He's going to need to adjust to that. So I don't think it would be that he just goes to the bullpen and throws every single day, right? Because you need to adjust to throwing more frequently, even though you're throwing less innings. That's a different schedule. It's a different routine. A player needs to adjust to that. So if he does go to the bullpen, then I think that we see him throw to start with maybe every second or third day, and they build him up from there to maybe throw more frequently than that. Hopefully he can figure out his control and contribute still in medium to high leverage situations. I would like to think that this is a guy that can still contribute something in limited showings, but he's had bad control in every inning. He's had bad control from the start of his outings. His control has just not been there. So it hasn't even been a guy that you can say oh yeah, he just struggles second, third time through. Let's put him in the bullpen. He's been bad every single time through the lineup, including the first time. So I'm not going to say I'm totally out on his future to contribute to a Major League Baseball team, but chances are it's getting closer to that. If he can't contribute out of the bullpen, what do you do? Yeah, stuff's great, but if you can't control it, you can't really pitch. So he doesn't have options. He would go to the bullpen. They'd probably use him sparingly. They'd build him up to maybe hopefully contribute still in medium to high leverage. That would be my hope for him. My hopes for him as a starter am I out on him as a starter? I'm about 90% out on him as a starter.
I'll follow you up. I think I'm 100% out at this point. I just go back to what Clayton said pregame, that it's time for Edward to take the next step. We didn't hear that from Skip last year, but he said they're going to challenge him. They're going to do everything they can to help him. But it gets to a point where this guy, I said earlier, he has all the talent in the world. He's an incredible pitcher. He has all the talent, but it's the same problems that we've been talking about for 4 years now. He can't spot his pitches, and he can't go deep really into games because his pitch count gets too high. So it's if anything, he's taking a step back this spring training. It really is just disappointing. I think he can carve out a role in the bullpen, but like Carver said, he's never been able to really command in any part of the game. So he's shown flashes. The thing with him really is when it gets to a point where you're about to give up on him, and then he delivers a gem, which I think happened a couple of times last year. And also last year, there was no really talent in the farm that you could say confidently is going to do better than him in the bigs. Now there is. So I think he has maybe a month and a half to start. If he continues to, step backwards instead of forwards, then I think it's time to pull the plug on him, at least as a starter.
Eli, do you think the bullpen is best reserved for him in a reliever type role, or maybe if they ever need an opener, Edward Cabrera is that guy?
Yeah, there's still hope that this could come together in an interesting way in the bullpen. I'm glad this commenter mentioned Mel. I mean, the reason why I've been low on Eddie for a while is that he was working with Mel for like 5 straight years. It's such a blessing to have the continuity working with the same major league pitching coach every single spring, and one that led to substantial positive changes for a lot of the guys that he came across. And yet with I remember it was a time last season. I mean, he did, to refresh people's memory, he had a pretty solid second half of the season. And a lot of that was linked to the same thing that kind of been bugging me the entire time. It's like he just doesn't throw his fastball enough as a starter to maximize the potential of his entire arsenal. And he started throwing it a little bit more, or at least more than he ever had before during that second half of last season. And Mel even talked about that in one of the rare interviews that he gave during that, how that makes a pretty substantial difference. So that is part of it, where it's just he clearly didn't absorb the information. He was just not a coachable player during his time in the Marlins organization. And now entering this year, this coaching staff completely turns over. He has the different input and a completely different perspective from Bill Hiesel and from Daniel Moscas and everybody else. And you show up to spring training, we see that Ryan Weathers has improved his fastball shape, yada, 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 and things are looking great. His velo is up. Max Meyer over the offseason has really good conversations with these coaches. He's added a new sweeper. His velo is up, looks really good. And what has Edward done with that same new input from the same new coaches? It's there's nothing specific at all that he's disclosed. And speaking with us now after every single start that he's made to this point, that I think that holds him back. I think there's ways as a reliever where you can still be really successful without it. It's a much simpler task when you're just going one through an order and usually just one inning at a time. He hasn't been put in that position before, so it's just speculation to know exactly how it would translate there. But I've just been relatively low on Eddie because of those intangibles, at least as a starter capacity. And I do think that at some point during this upcoming season, he's going to make that transition.
Carver, I know you mentioned Andrew Miller earlier. Do you see any resemblance, any comparisons between him and Andrew so long ago?
I don't know. I think that it's different because Miller is a larger person than this guy. He's a lefty. But no, Andrew Miller had great stuff, and he was kind of a starter to start with. But I think they realized it more quickly than this that he wasn't going to stick long term as a starter. So, like Nate said, they kind of didn't have the prospect capital to do anything with Edwards. Like, they needed starting pitching so bad last year. You could look at some of the prospects they called up to start games. Like they just didn't have the prospect capital to say we're out right now. But now I think that with other guys around, Snelling, Mazur, kind of the top two that I would point to. You could even point to Dax, who, when that guy's ready, he should be here for sure. I think that if he goes to AAA to start this year, maybe we see Dax this year. It's possible. Mm-hmm. I think with guys like that pushing their way and with better prospect capital, now you're in a position to say, okay, your stuff's great, but you can't control it. These guys have all improved and are pushing their way. So it's time for you to go to the pen at least. If not, maybe give him a change of scenery and see if another team can figure him out. That's another option at the trade deadline. Possible. Don't know what you would get. Don't ask me that question. I don't know. But that's another possibility as well for a player that's out of options that is not performing. So, yeah, with what they have in the farm system now, I think this guy's time is running out rather quickly as a starter.